you for being so willing at the last moment to step in there. And I love Jack Fowler, and I love that song so much. Good morning. It's good to see all of this beautiful Unity family. You know, it's always nice to go on vacation, but it's always wonderful to come home. And this community is one of the big reasons why it's always so nice to come home. We are so blessed here, aren't we? I mean, we really do have such an incredible spiritual community and a spiritual family. I want to say a huge thank you once again to Reverends Pat and Les McClellan for stepping up and, yes, as always, sharing your incredible gifts of your, and I can say many years of ministry because you've shared the decades of ministry that you've had together. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us. We appreciate you both so very much. So here we are in the midst of our series saying yes to life, and we started out by saying yes to abundance, meaning financial freedom, financial flow, recognizing that money is an important part of our journey. Yes it is. And then we said yes to love, and we based that on love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. Yes to loving God with all that we are, and part of how we do that is by loving ourselves and by loving others. And so today we are gonna say yes to healing. And I thought it was interesting how long our prayer list was today. I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And I will tell you that the number one prayer request with Silent Unity has to do with healing. Has to do with health and wholeness. So we're going to say yes today to a greater experience of physical wholeness. You know, the reality is as we look around our world today, we see more and more and more illness. Yes, we hear about it all the time. I'm sure there's not a single one of us who has either not experienced something physically with our bodies, or we know of people around us that are experiencing something now. And from our perspective and what we really believe, it makes sense because what is our, and I would have to say our country, really focused on? Illness, the health system, the inevitable things that happen as we age. Anybody ever say that? Well, you know, I am getting older. And here's the thing I do want to say. Our bodies do get older, and our bodies do change, and that doesn't mean that we have to get sick and die. That means that we can still have a healthy life and just go like Myrtle Fillmore did, which I'll talk more about Myrtle in a minute. And how do you like those commercials for medications on TV? I feel like they're just shows in and of themselves, you know. You just mute it, and you're like, look at the happy life. If I just take this medication, everything will be great. And we're getting this subliminal message, you know, that someday you're probably going to have this illness, but this medication is going to make your life really great. Now, I want to say here, I am not against any avenue of health. Anybody that knows me knows that I am open to all of it. I take medication, and I have no issue with that. God works through everything. I think the main thing is that, as Charles Fillmore said, we want to go to headquarters, which we go to that higher place in ourself, and we open ourselves up to God's guidance in what is our avenue for healing. Because sometimes it's going to be that, for me actually, most of the time, it's a combination of things. And so be open to, just don't close things down. I'm going to say don't fight for your limitations. I do want to say too that illness is not a failure, my friends. Illness does not mean that you're doing something wrong spiritually. And death is not a failure, and death is not an end. I always say there's a greater mystery to this that we call life and beyond that we don't understand. I didn't understand why my 9-year-old great-nephew, had to die of cancer, but he did. And that's where I have to step back and trust there's a greater mystery. There's, you know, something more that I don't understand. And today we're going to step into the possibility of healing. So, and I love this old Japanese proverb that says, when death finds you, hope it finds you alive. And we all know, because, you know, we can be mostly dead. I would love the Princess Bride. How many of us have seen the Princess Bride? And, you know, where it's like, you know, I'm just mostly dead. So the idea today is that we are going to live our lives abundantly. Our great master said, I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. And today in particular, we're going to focus on physical health abundance, that we're going to embrace life, we're going to enjoy it until it's time to lay this physical garment aside. We are transformed by the renewal of our Yes, we are transformed by the renewal of our minds, and we begin today to change our minds about our health and life and start moving towards life abundantly. Now, some of you will recognize the name Zig Ziglar. Many of you won't because you're too young, but Zig Ziglar was a huge positive motivational speaker, and I love that he said something along the lines of positive thinking doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do anything that you think you can do, but positive thinking makes everything better than negative thinking does. That is a fact. And yes, and so what I'm saying here is really don't fight for your limitations. Start recognizing where you're holding on to a reason why you can't be healthier, to a reason why you can't experience greater life experience. And here's what I'm going to tell you, that even when somebody, like with my great nephew, here's what I will tell you. His whole family, they were so positive. They were, the most positive people I've ever known, never seen how they handled this. And so the experience that he had in that transition was a very positive experience. So positive thinking makes everything better than negative thinking does. So today I want to plant a seed that no matter what is taking place in your life today in your physical body, no matter what illness, no matter what disease, that which is within you has the power to transform anything. Anything. Again, the Gospel of Thomas says, if you bring forth that which is within you, it will save you. And if you don't bring it forth, it will destroy you. That's a powerful scripture. So we want to bring forth, we want to allow that ever-present flow of the God life. We want to bring that forth through us. So how many of us here today desire to live a healthy whole life until we're ready to leave this physical garment? Okay, yes, of course. And here's the big question. Are you willing to do whatever it takes? Now, don't just go with a quick, Unity answer. Of course I am. Because it's a big, big question. Jesus said, do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be healed? And, of course, the answer to that question is, yeah. Of course we want to be made whole. We want to heal. And my clicker needs some batteries, some AAA batteries, please. So if we could go to the next one. So Mary Alice and Richard Jaffola, who are Unity ministers, said, do you want to be whole? That seems like a silly question, but it's not as foolish as it may seem, because there are many of us who think we want to be well, yet do not believe in and expect wholeness at the deepest level of our being. And if you go to the next one. So do you want to be healed translates into, do you want to exorcise? We'll talk about exercise in a couple weeks, but do we want to exorcise our belief in and expectation of illness? Do you want to banish the ghosts of disease patterns at the quantum level, a level beyond the tissues, the cells, and even the atoms, a level touched and known only in the silent, empty spaces beyond all physical matter? The new awareness of wholeness is what changes one's beliefs and subsequently the patterns we provide for the new cells which continually are born in us. Thank you. So it's that whole idea that we literally have the ability to change our cells, our atoms, our DNA. It's been proven now that we have the ability to change these things. And when I think about what we teach in Unity and the power of our mind, what is the most direct relationship that we have with our mind? It's our body, the mind-body connection. So it's powerful. But my friends, we get stuck. We get stuck in saying things like, I have arthritis, I have diabetes, I have cancer, my memory's going, I have fibromyalgia, I have high blood pressure, I have high cholesterol, I'm in menopause, my kidneys are failing. They told me I only had so long to live. I can't quit smoking or drinking or doing drugs. So as you came in today, there was a little bowl with a little white pearl. And if you didn't get one, they're out there. And this is really just to serve as a symbol for us today. And this is based on the parable that our great master physician Jesus tells in Mark about the pearl of great price. And he tells the parable of a merchant who went in search of fine pearls, and who, finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. So today, this pearl represents the awareness that God in us and as us is our health and wholeness, our life, that all things are possible. I really love I read somewhere, something may not be probable, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. And I love that that's the scripture is, all things are possible for those who believe. And so this pearl for us now represents that all things are possible because the power of God is where? It's within us. It's right where we are. So in this case, are we willing, by getting this pearl of great price, to sell everything? All of our old beliefs. That's a big one. And if you were in class this morning, and if you weren't, then you'll want to go watch class this morning, because those of you who are in class will get this, because we probably have some screens on our plasma TV that are saying, this is my illness, this is my illness, this is what I have, this is what I have. So are we willing to give up our old beliefs? All of our doubts, ooh, that's a big one. All of our how-tos, all of our limiting thoughts, all of our naysayers. Really? You think you can be healed? Yes. All of our past programming, all of the mass consciousness that is coming to us from all kinds of places. Are we willing to give up all of these things and focus solely on God within us? Because this is what we are being called to do. To focus on the reality of the life and the wholeness and the healing power of God within us. Now, what can it hurt to do that? And hear me again, I am not saying to give up your medications or your doctors or your avenues at all. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about let's leave these doubts here. And I'm talking about in this moment, this morning, in this place, opening yourself up to being transformed by the renewal of your mind by the power of God within you. So the way that we're going to start into this, because I don't know how long we're going to focus on this is the basis of unity. Unity came out of Myrtle Fillmore's healing. And with everything that is going on around us, coming out of a pandemic, and just how we're constantly being bombarded with mass consciousness about how we're going to get sick, how we're going to get old, and we're going to be sick, and these kinds of things, it's so important that we focus on something else. So we're going to talk for a few minutes about Myrtle Fillmore. Myrtle Fillmore is the co-founder of Unity. And Myrtle Fillmore grew up always having this relationship with God. She just would talk to God. She just had this relationship with God. Well, from an early age, now this comes out of the book Myrtle Fillmore, Mother of Unity by Thomas E. Witherspoon. So at a very early age, she was afflicted with a sickness, and the doctors determined that what she had was tuberculosis. And so she always heard things like, she's so delicate, don't let her overdo, she must be protected, this is an inherited disease. So can you think back on any time in your life where maybe you heard things that got stuck in your consciousness about illness or your ability to heal, or anything like that? So at the age of 23, she was teaching children in Clinton, Missouri, and but it says that slowly her life force was ebbing away, and her doctors recommended that she move to Denison, Texas. Now, Denison, Texas was where she met Charles Fillmore, and eventually she and Charles got married, and they ended up moving back to Kansas City. But at the age of 39, Myrtle's condition was deteriorating very rapidly. And with her move back to the Midwest and with all of its dampness, she had a flare-up of tuberculosis. complicated by fevers of malaria. Now remember, she wasn't in the spiritual awareness at this point of her ability to be able to co-partner with God and heal. So she kept up with the doctors, and it says that she kept taking the foul-smelling medicine. And her son said they got some of that foul-smelling medicine at times as well. But ultimately, the doctors couldn't do anything for her. And she was told, she probably didn't have very long to live. So she and Charles thought about returning to Texas, but Charles had had a dream that he would do great things in Kansas City, and he really felt that the destinies of the Fillmores really depended upon them being in Kansas City, Missouri. So they stayed. Imagine that. They stayed. But by the spring of 1886, when Myrtle was just 41 years old, it appeared that the end of her life was near, and she was given 6 months to live. So, as you can imagine, she clutched to any straw in the wind that might give her more time, and she and Charles attended virtually every possible health-oriented lecture given in that area. And then she, too, had a dream. In it, she heard voices calling to her, and she saw hands beckoning to her, apparently from another realm of existence. But she felt a strong force on this earth plane holding her in this visible realm. So shortly after her experience and her dream, there came a lecturer, Dr. E.B. Weeks from the Illinois Metaphysical College, who was trained under Emma Curtis Hopkins, which, if you know anything about the New Thought movement, Emma Curtis Hopkins was big in that. And she was one of the foremost metaphysicians of her time. And he came to Kansas City and gave a great truth to Myrtle. As she left the lecture that night, she came away with this sentence: I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness. Now, the book says that slowly she let this truth sink into her conscious mind and take hold. It was her last straw, and she grasped it with both hands and all her strength, and she would not let it go. And when you look at this, and we've been talking about affirmations and denials, in this one sentence is an affirmation and a denial. I am a child of God, therefore I do not inherit sickness, because she'd been told this was an inherited disease. Who was her father but God? God was her true father, is how she looked at it. So she took this new truth within her and she talked to her body. And days, weeks, and months went by, and gradually she started to note improvement. She closed herself in a room and she studied the 4 Gospels, and she sat, and you may not know this, she sat next to an empty chair. She always had an empty chair by her because she knew that the Spirit of Jesus Christ occupied that chair and was supporting her and encouraging her in her quest. And she read the Gospels meticulously, especially studying the words of Jesus concerning healing. From John, truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me will also do the works that I do, and greater works. Jesus' ministry was a huge ministry of healing, right? Yes. In Mark, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, when you believe that you've received it, you will have it. In John, do you want to be healed? And in Luke, your faith has made you whole. So she believed and she accepted. She took it from her head to her heart. Now, as you can see here, it took time. She took this sentence and she grasped it with all of her being, but it wasn't an immediate whoa, I get it. She worked with this, and it finally went from a belief into an acceptance. And Charles was startled and remarked that her health appeared to be improving, and she was more adamant and said, I am healed, and you are too, for we are one. Now, if you ever read about Myrtle Fillmore or read her book, Healing Letters, she was like, bam. I mean, she didn't cut you any slack. She was bam on with truth, and she lived it, and she proved the truth. So together they began an intensive period of study and prayer, and Charles himself started to note improvement in his health, and I'll talk more about that at another time. So it was about 1888, and they were preparing to launch into the spiritual work that would eventually be known as Unity School of Christianity. And so I want to share with you a dream that she had. She had this dream when she was a child, and so she didn't really understand the dream, but after her healing, it made total sense to her. She said there was a bed of a stream that must have been active at some time. It was beautiful with white sandy bottom, but all the water that it held was a few bowls of white rock, apparently a dried up stream. So stopping to investigate, I could find no source. A very high ledge of rock crossed its bed at the south, and looking to the north, I could see only a continuous bed of like character as that before me. And in my astonishment, I voiced the question, from whence the source of this stream? And for an answer, there came a sudden voice, more of waters than anything else, I will show you. And over the ledge of rock came pouring a regular Niagara. I had to get back further into the woods, away from the spray. It ceased when the bed was filled. And as I stood looking at the clear water of the stream, beautiful flowers sprang up. This was one of my many dreams, the meaning of which was to be made plain afterwards, when my life stream was low and I was about to lose it, and then there came pouring into me this truth. I saw more clearly the meaning of the dream. I remembered the source of my life, where the source of my life was, and how it came over the rock that was higher than I. Where there had seemed to be lack and low pressure of life, there was now free-flowing, more abundant Christ life, made fruitful unto good works through God's power, wisdom, and love. And how beautiful is that, she remembered that dream and the meaning that it had for her at that time, where she realized that's exactly what she tapped into, was this ever-present flow of life, of the healing presence of God. So the Reverend Eric Butterworth, many decades ago, shared this, and this is from Dr. Richard Cabot of Harvard Medical School. Okay. He said, the body has a super wisdom which is biased on the side of life rather than death. It is 10 times as powerful as medicine's invitation. What is this powerful force? It is God. And I recommend to the medical profession to let the patient know of this great force that is working within him. It does the healing practitioner no good to avoid the word of God. Why not teach people the truth? How many of us have gone to doctors and they've said, you need to partner with God in your healing? I see no hands. Oh, there's a hand, yay! But isn't that awesome? This was probably 20, 25 years ago. And he's saying, physicians need to know there's so much more to this than just the scientific aspect of it, that there's this power of God. He says the underlying cause of life is the divine life force. That is what brought us forward. That is what continues to animate us. And I always think in my head that the power that created us knows how to heal us. It knows how to heal us, but we must partner with us. It's not something extraneous to you and the competence or the ability of a person and the effectiveness of a pill or medication, not something that acts upon you when properly contacted, although those things are perfectly fine. But what it is your very life. It does not come or go or start or stop. It does not step up its action through your prayer. What? Your prayer changes you in consciousness so that more life is then revealed. Life does not get old or sick or diseased. Life doesn't die. Life itself is always whole. But the divine life force flows into you to the degree that you accept it. Jesus says, according to your faith, be it done unto you. You see, what is called spiritual healing is not a befuddled attempt to get God out there to do something for you, to perform a miracle upon you. God is not a healer. God is life. So healing then is not something God does for us. Healing is something in a sense that you do for yourself. The only healer in all the world is you. Not in your ability to heal other people, but the ability to accept the wholeness of the life process within you. There's a movement in consciousness in which we awaken the belief system and accept to a greater degree than ever before the unrestricted flow of that which eternally is. God is an ever-present source to be discovered and to be released through us. And it's interesting because, when it says here, healing is something that you do for yourself. Again, for me, I like the partnering. I like the think of the partnering with the God of my understanding, that it's something that we're doing together. But I understand what this is saying, that it's really about us opening ourselves up, getting those limiting thoughts and ideas behind us, and taking the time and really taking the time to go into that place. That's why having some time apart is so important, because we can just take that time to be quiet and open ourselves up to allow that to be released in us, as us, and through us. And Al, to release our imprisoned splendor, right? Yes, we're going to release our imprisoned splendor. So your pearl of great price, you are never alone. You're never without help. And no condition is ever without hope. The great healer is the presence within you, which is never absent. It's never absent. Even in some of the worst experience maybe of what you're going through in your physical body, that great healer is within you. As it functions through you, through your own faith, you become the healer, the only healer in the world who has the power to heal you from your condition. No one else but you can say to you with authority, this condition can be healed. This condition can be healed. And sometimes we're going to have to say, help me in my unbelief. Help me in my unbelief, because the reality is that it's hard to really line up fully with this when your body's experiencing something that's not wholeness, right? So help me in my unbelief. We open ourselves up to this guidance that is always here for us. Whether it's angels or guides, whatever, something is always here with us and is willing to guide us and to help us in that. Paul said to stir up the gift of God that's within you. So we want to stir up the gift of God. So I invite you to take this pearl with you. And if you are dealing with something that is not quite the way you want it to be in your physical body, keep that pearl where you can see it. Let that be your reminder that all things are possible. And that reminder to stop and to become present and aware and to allow that life force to flow through you. So let's close today. And this is actually from our daily word, but by affirming these words together. And before I forget, that Myrtle's healing is how Unity came about, because it was after Myrtle's healing, and because of her healing, people started to come to her to ask her. They started praying with people. Silent Unity came out of that, and ultimately here we are, in a Unity church over 100 years later. So together, God's life is my life. My body is God's holy temple, and God's healing stream of life flows in and through me. I can be healed. Let's say that last sentence together with a little more enthusiasm and power, and like we really believe it, okay? Last sentence. I can be healed, and you can be healed. And I say to you, namaste, namaste. We can be healed, yes.